Some children never really get to be children. They become mature too early, quiet too early, responsible too early. Adults praise them for it. They're so well behaved. They're wise for their age. They never cause problems. But sometimes, that maturity is actually survival. Because when a child grows up too fast, they don't stop being a child emotionally. They just learn how to hide it. And years later, it shows up in ways nobody expects. In the way they apologize too much, the way they struggle to relax, the way they feel guilty for resting, the way they become everyone's emotional support person while secretly feeling completely alone. This is the psychology of a child who grew up too fast. A healthy childhood is supposed to feel safe. Not perfect, not painless, but safe enough to explore the world slowly. Safe enough to make mistakes. Safe enough to be messy. Safe enough to depend on someone else. But some children never get that. Instead, they grow up in environments where emotional survival becomes their full-time job. Maybe the house was constantly tense. Maybe the parents fought every night. Maybe one parent was emotionally absent. Maybe the child became the responsible one because nobody else was. So the child adapts. They stop asking for help. They stop expressing emotions. They learn how to read moods instantly. They become hyper-aware of everyone else's feelings. Not because they're naturally mature, because they had to be. Psychologists sometimes call this parentification, when a child emotionally becomes the adult in the household. And the dangerous part is, these children often look successful from the outside. They get good grades. They seem calm. They rarely complain. But internally, many of them are exhausted. Because children are not designed to carry adult emotional weight, especially alone. One of the biggest signs of someone who grew up too fast is extreme independence. At first, it looks admirable. They never ask for favors. They handle everything alone. They hate depending on people. But underneath that independence is often a deeper belief. If I rely on someone, I'll get hurt. I'll get disappointed. I'll become a burden. So they learn to need nobody, even when they're drowning. You'll notice these people struggle to receive care comfortably. Someone helps them, they feel guilty. Someone gives them affection, they feel suspicious. Someone asks what's wrong, they say, I'm fine, even when they clearly aren't. Because growing up too fast teaches children a painful lesson. Your emotions are inconvenient. So instead of expressing pain, they become emotionally self-contained. And over time, that survival strategy becomes their personality. People often assume the calmest child is the healthiest child. But sometimes, the calmest child is simply the child most afraid of causing problems. Children who grow up too fast become experts at emotional monitoring. They analyze tone changes, facial expressions, silence, footsteps, door sounds. They constantly scan for danger without realizing it. And this hypervigilance follows them into adulthood. That's why many adults who grew up too fast struggle to truly relax. Even during peaceful moments, their nervous system stays alert. They feel guilty doing nothing. They overthink text messages. They prepare for problems before they happen. They struggle to feel emotionally safe in relationships. Not because they're dramatic, because their brain adapted to unpredictability early in life. Their nervous system learned, if I stay alert, maybe I can prevent pain. But eventually, living in survival mode becomes exhausting. Children who grow up too fast often become emotional caretakers. They become the therapist friend, the peacemaker, the listener. They know how to comfort everyone else. But many secretly feel uncomfortable receiving the same care back. Because growing up, love may have felt conditional. They may have unconsciously learned, I'm valuable when I help. I'm lovable when I'm useful. My needs come second. So as adults, they become overly responsible for other people's emotions. If someone is upset, they blame themselves. If someone pulls away, they panic internally. If someone is disappointed, they feel overwhelming guilt. And slowly, they begin carrying emotional burdens that were never theirs to carry. The tragic irony is, the child who took care of everyone else often grows into an adult nobody checks on, Because they seem strong. For people who grew up too fast, rest can feel deeply uncomfortable, not physically, emotionally. Because when your childhood revolved around responsibility, your brain starts associating productivity with safety. If they stop moving, stop working, stop helping, stop achieving, they feel anxiety, almost like they've done something wrong. That's why many adults who grew up too fast constantly keep themselves busy. Work, school, goals, self-improvement, taking care of others. Silence becomes uncomfortable because silence leaves room for emotions they never had time to process as children. And sometimes, the hardest thing for them isn't working hard. It's believing they deserve peace without earning it first. One of the saddest parts about growing up too fast is the loneliness nobody notices, because these people often appear emotionally strong, but internally, many feel unseen, not for who they truly are, but for the role they learn to play. The dependable one, the mature one, the strong one. And after years of playing that role, they may not even know how to be vulnerable anymore. Sometimes, they secretly wish someone would notice they're struggling without needing to ask, because as children, they learned that asking directly often changed nothing. So instead, they wait silently, hoping someone finally sees through the mask. The hardest realization for people who grew up too fast is this: just because you survived it doesn't mean it was healthy. A child should not have to earn love through usefulness. A child should not feel responsible for adult emotions. A child should not feel guilty for having needs. And healing often begins when they finally understand something powerful. The survival strategies that protected them as children may now be the very things hurting them as adults. The hyper-independence, the emotional suppression, the people-pleasing, the constant self-sacrifice. Those behaviors once kept them safe, but they no longer have to live in survival mode forever. Because real healing is not becoming colder. It's finally allowing yourself to become softer, to rest without guilt, to ask for help without shame, to stop carrying everyone else emotionally, to realize your worth was never dependent on how useful you were, and maybe most importantly, to finally give yourself the compassion you needed when you were younger. Some children lose their childhood quietly, not through one dramatic moment, but through years of emotional pressure nobody noticed. And sometimes, the strongest adults you meet are simply children who learned too early that nobody was coming to save them. But healing begins when they stop treating survival as their identity and start realizing they were always deserving of care too. If this video made you think, take a moment to like, subscribe, and join the Inner Thinker. We explore the quiet thoughts people rarely talk about. New videos every week.